In this lesson, we will talk about Excel tables. We will learn how to modify them, stylize them, and use them to the fullest of their potential.
But let's start with the most important step, the table creation. In the current sheet, we can see the sales of 6 employees for the first trimester of the year. We have marked the 2-star employees with an orange background. The cells are not formatted in any other way. We can easily format them manually if we want, but the creation of an Excel table will do it for us. We navigate to the Home tab of the ribbon and click on Format as Table. A list of dozens of predefined styles will appear. We choose one. A window appears that lets us choose the range we want to convert to a table. Since the selected cell was in an area that could be a candidate for a table conversion, that area is shown in the field. Of course, we can change the cell area and choose any area we want. There is a checkbox here that lets us define if the cell range we have selected includes headers. Even though in our case it does, let's see what happens if we uncheck it. The cell range has been formatted as table, and a new row was created to play the role of the headers.
Notice that the cells with the orange background we had already pre-formatted didn't lose their formatting. But since our data has headers already, let's undo the table creation and redo it properly. We click on Undo, then select any cell of the desired cell range, and finally from the Home tab, we select a table style. Let's say this one. We double check the cell range is the correct one and make sure the checkbox is checked. That's it. Our table is ready. And not only have we created the table, but we have also stylized it. All with a couple of clicks. Notice that the orange background of the 2 employees is still here, while the rest of the cells have been formatted to fit the style we have selected. But we have a lot more customization options when we create a table.
Besides the cell style changes, there is a couple more differences from our original data we can see. First are the arrow buttons, which help us sort and filter the table. We will talk more about them at another video. These arrows can be hidden though, as we will see in a while, and the only clue that these data have been formatted as a table will be this small corner icon in the lower right of the table. This icon shows us the edges of the table. If we hover our mouse over it, the mouse cursor changes to a diagonal double arrow. If we press the left mouse button and keep it pressed while moving our mouse, we can resize the table to include or exclude rows and columns of data. Here we have moved it upwards and removed the last row of the table. If we drag it downwards, we can include it again.
There is one more way to add rows and columns to our table. We can simply type something in the cells adjacent to the table cells and they will be added to the table. For example, suppose we want to add one more column in the table for month April. All we have to do is go to cell E1 and type April. When we press Enter, a new column will have been added. Same goes for rows as well. Let's add the employee named Smith in cell A8. A new row is automatically added to the table. Let's undo these 2 actions.
There is one more way to change the size of the table. If we click anywhere inside the table, a new tab appears in the ribbon. In the leftmost part of the tab, we have the option to give our table a name, which will be very useful when we want to use the table in our formulas, as we will see later in the video. This is why it is best to replace the default name that Excel gave to our table to something else. Let's type employees. Below the table name, there is the button Resize Table. If we click it, a new window will appear that will allow us to select the cell range that is included in our table. We select the cell range of the table and make sure we have excluded March. We press OK, and as we can see from the small corner icon, March is no longer part of our table. Let's include it again. We click on the rectangle icon and drag to include the March column.
There are more buttons in the Table Design tab though. On the right of the New tab, we can find the list of predefined table styles. We can change the table style by using any of them, or we can clear the styling altogether by clicking on the Clear option. All the formatting of the table has disappeared, but the orange background of the two employees that existed before the creation of the table remained. Let's select some other style.
We can also create a style from scratch if we want to. We click on the Style button to show all the styles, and from the bottom of the list we select a new style. A new window will appear showing a list of all the different parts of the table, such as the header row. At the top of the window we can select a name for our style. Let's say my first style. Then we select the header row part and click on the Format button below the list. The familiar Format Cells window appears, allowing to format the header cells any way we want. Let's make them bold and change the fill to yellow. And click on OK. We can see a preview of our changes in the preview image on the right of the window. Similarly, we change the other parts of the table to create our table style. The new style will be at the top of the style list.
Let's go to the courses sheet. Here we see one more table. It shows the grades of 6 students in 5 lessons. We click inside it and navigate to the Table Design tab. Next to the styles list, we can see a series of checkboxes. Each one of them enables or disables a specific table feature. We can see that in the current table there are 2 checkboxes selected, the header row and the filter button. This is why there is a header row in our table and the filter buttons are visible on it. If we click on the filter button checkbox, the filter buttons disappear. If we uncheck the header row, the header row disappears. Let's check both of them again. The first column checkbox formats the first column in a different style. We select this if our first column contains data that could be used as row labels. In our case, the name of the lessons are indeed the row headers, so we keep this checkbox selected. The total row checkbox shows a new row at the end of the table.
If we click on any of the cells in that new row, a drop-down box appears that lets us select which function we want to use on the data of that column. There are a lot of functions to choose from, and we can even select any of the hundreds of functions of Excel. The logical in this case is to use the average function, which will calculate the average grade of each student. We will skip the last column checkbox for now and check the banded rows checkbox. This adds to our table banded rows so that it will be easier to read the data, especially if there are a lot of rows of them. Banded columns does the same thing, but with columns. For our data, banded rows look better, so we can check that one.
The last column checkbox we skipped earlier works similarly to the first column checkbox, but for the last column of our table. In order to be meaningful in our table, we have to create a summary column in our table. Let's call it average. The column has been automatically added. Now let's format it as last column. The formatting of the last column changed to make it stand out and is now time to populate it.
We want to calculate the average, so we type equals and the function name average. We select the cell range, that's B2 up to G2. Notice that instead of B2 up to G2, our function uses the name of the table enclosed in brackets followed by the @ and the name of the columns. This means that it will use the values of the current row of the grades table and start from the column Jackson and go up to column Corner. If we click on Enter, the whole column and not just the cell will be populated with the function, which is what we would want to do anyway. Excel is smart enough to save us a step. We can also add the average for our new column in the totals row.
We will ignore all but one of the rest commands of the Table Design Tools tab, since they are rather advanced for this lesson. The one we will talk about is the Convert to Range button. This converts our table back to a normal cell range but doesn't clear the table style that we have applied. If we click on it, a pop-up window appears that asks for confirmation. We click on OK, and the table has been converted to a regular cell range. The corner icon and the filter buttons are no longer there, but the rest of the table styling remained.
This was a long video, but tables are one of the most useful features of Excel.